Good morning, friends. I, Dr. Devesh Bandel, Associate Professor, Suresh Gyan Vihar University, that is a grade by NAC A grade. Today, I will discuss about aggregate functions in SQL. First of all, I am sharing my screen. I hope you can see my screen. Today, in this lecture, I will discuss about aggregate functions in SQL. SQL is your structure query language. So before discussion about aggregate functions in SQL, I would like to discuss about SQL. What is your SQL? SQL that is your structure query language. Through the SQL, through this query language, student can learn about how to write the query. Through the query, how you will generate the table, how you will include the data into a table, how you will update the data into a table through the SQL language. Okay, and in this lecture, I will discuss about aggregate functions in SQL. You know, there are so many aggregate functions in SQL, and in this lecture I will discuss about so many topics of your aggregate functions in SQL, like your object and outcome overview, types of aggregate functions, examples of aggregate functions, and end of this lecture I will include the some questions which are all related from this lecture. So first of all, I would like to discuss about object and outcome. You know, through the SQL, I had told you can write the query. Through the query, you can create the table. Through the query, you can delete the table. Through the query, you can insert the data. You can delete the data. You can update the data, etc. And if we will talk about the outcome of this lecture, so in this lecture, students should we learn about how to use the aggregate functions. What are the syntax of your SQL functions? When your SQL function will execute, so what your result will be displayed. That is your object and outcome of this aggregate functions in your SQL. As per I had told, you can see here object to understand concept and aggregate functions and your like operator, and outcome to be able how to aggregate functions and like operator. And now in this lecture I will discuss about aggregate functions. you know there are so many aggregate functions in your structure query language. Aggregate function perform a calculation on a set of value and return a single value. When you will apply the aggregate function, so through the aggregate function, your calculation will be performed on a set of value, and in your output you will get a only single value. So that is the basic aim of your aggregate functions. Except for count star, aggregate function ignore null value. That is the advantage of your aggregate functions. Your aggregate function will always ignore your null value. Aggregate functions are often used with the group by clause. You know, in my coming lectures, I will discuss about the group by clause. And here I am not discussing about the group by clause. Here you can understand only your aggregate function are often used with the group by clause of the select statement. I think you know about the select statement. Through the select statement, you will select the tuples, you will select the columns. If you want to select the all columns of your table, so you will write only star. And if you want to select the only one or more columns, only one or two columns, so your all columns should be separated by comma, and all aggregate functions are deterministic. So the key point of your aggregate function will apply on your set of value, and after execute your aggregate function, you will get only one value, except for count star. And you know there is a main important point about aggregate function. In your aggregate functions, often used every time you will ignore the null value. That is the main important thing of your aggregate functions. And you know your aggregate functions are often used in your group by clause. Where your group by clause, because you are taking your aggregate functions are applying on your multiple values, on your set of values, and you will find only single value in your output. And you know there are many types of your aggregate functions, like your min, max, count, average, and sum. And I will discuss all aggregate functions one by one, and also I will discuss about the examples of your all types of aggregate functions, like your minimum, max, count, average, and your sum. First of all, I would like to discuss about the min function. Min means minimum. Okay, and in your minimum function, return the smallest value of the selected column. So through the minimum function, you will select the only smallest value of the selected column. For example, suppose if you are having a table, your table is your teacher, okay, and your you have to you will take the one attribute of your teacher table is your salary. And in this table you have to already inserted the many records, inserted the many tuples, right? And in your tuples, your column salary having salaries are 1000, 2000, 3000, 4000, and your 5000. And you want to find the those employee salary, you want to find the only minimum salary in your selected column, that is your salary. So that time you will apply this function, min function, and through the min function you will find the minimum salary of your salary attribute. And max function, the max function return the largest value of the selected column. You know your max function is just a reverse of your minimum function. In your minimum function, return your minimum value, and in your maximum function you return the maximum value. And here I am taking the example for your minimum function and your maximum function. Like as per I had told, I had taken a table of your employee, okay, and in your employee table I have taken the many attributes like your employee name, employee father name, employee date of joining, employee salary, employee ID number. And your employer want to find the minimum salary of employee, and also your employer want to find the maximum salary of your employee. As per I had told, for the minimum you will apply the min function, and for the maximum you will apply the for the maximum salary you will apply the max function. So that time, for minimum salary you will apply the min function, and for the maximum salary you will apply the max function, that is your max function. And here I had mentioned the syntax of your min function. Select, in this query, you will use the select clause, from clause, and your where clause. So select min, min is your function, and your function will apply on your column name, on your attribute name, and from table name, and your where is your condition. That is the syntax of your minimum function. As per I had taken example of your employee table, so you will write select min column name. Suppose you want to find the minimum salary, so that time you will take the column salary. You will write select min salary from table name. Your table name is your employee, and where condition, if you want to apply the condition. And after that, I had also mentioned the syntax of your max function. In your max function is just reverse of your min function. And through the maximum function, as per I had told, you will find the maximum value of your column. If I am taking the column as your salary, so you will find the maximum salary. So select max column name from table name where condition. Okay, that is your syntax of your max function. And here I had taken a example, and in this example, first of all, I will take a database, and in the database I had taken a table, and in this table I had taken six attributes. I had taken the six attributes. Your attributes names are product ID, product name, supplier ID, category ID, unit, and your price. Okay, your product ID are 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. Product names are Chase, Chang, Ensign Syrup, Cheap Entin, and your Cheap Entin's Gombo Mix. And your I had also taken the all supplier ID, that is your 11122, category ID 11222, unit, and your price. In this database, in this table, I will apply the min function and your max function. So you can see here. Okay, and now I am taking the example of your min function. Okay, you know, from this table, suppose your employer want to find the minimum price. Your first product ID having price is your 18, 2 is your 19, 3 is your 10, 4 is your 22, and fifth is your 21.35. And you want to find the minimum price. So you will write the query for find the minimum price. So here I have taken an example, and I will apply this example on this table. Select min price as smallest price from product. Your product is your table, and why you have to taken a select clause. Through the select clause you will find you will select your attribute. So here price is your attribute. Okay. And I had also mentioned the as smallest price. The reason of that is that your price attribute name will change, and that time your new output column is that smallest price. Okay. So, you can see here, and now you will write the query for find the minimum price. So select min price as smallest price from product. Product is your table. So after execute this query, you will find the minimum price. Your minimum price will be 18. So that time your output should be smallest price 18. Okay, so that is the example of your min function, that is your minimum function. And through the minimum function you will find the minimum value of that particular column. Here through this example I had find the minimum price. Okay. And your minimum price is your 18. And when your output will be display, so that time your display will be smallest price 18. And after that, suppose your employer want to find the maximum price. When you find the maximum value of your particular column, so you will apply the max function. Okay. And in the same in your min function, as I have written the largest price, so when your output will be display, in your output will display largest price this. Okay. And select very well about this, and your from very well about the about from clause. And when your query will execute, so from the price column you will find the maximum value. And you can see here in this maximum value is your 22. So you will find the maximum price is your 22. Okay. And as per your I had written the largest price. Okay. So in your output your display will be largest price, that is your 22. So that is the example of your minimum and maximum function. I had told about that your through the min function you will find the minimum value of your particular column. And if you will apply the max function, so through the max function you will find the maximum value of your particular value. And after the min function and your max function, I will discuss about the your count function. Count is your one of the aggregate function of your SQL. And many times you will use the count function in your SQL. Count, from this word you can identify the number of rows. Suppose if you are having a table, and in your table you have to already inserted the 5 row. So through the count you can count the all number of rows, you can count the all number of tuples, you can count the all number of records. So your count function return the number of row that match a specified criteria. Okay. And now I will discuss about the syntax of your count function. That is the syntax of your count function. Select, here you will use the select clause, from clause, and your where clause. I had told about that your where clause is your option. You can write the where clause, and also you cannot write the where clause. That is depend on your query. That is depend on your task. And where clause you will apply where you will give the condition. That time you will apply the where clause. Like your if you want to uh, find the salary of your those employee whose employee ID is your one and your two. So that time you can see in this query your conditions are mentioned. Your condition are mentioned, like you will find salary of those employee who are having employee ID 1 and 2. So that time you will use the where clause. And your where clause is your optional. You can write the where clause, and also you can write the where clause. So that is the syntax of your count function. Select count column name from table name where your condition. Count is your function, and your count will be applied on your column name. Okay. And now you can see here, and also I will discuss about the average function. The average function return the average value of your numeric column. This function will be used when you want to return the average value of your numeric column. And syntax of your average function, like select abg average column name from table name where condition. Okay, your average function will also apply on your column name. And your another function, that is your aggregate function, that is your sum function. Your from the sum you can judge the total sum of your numeric column. So your sum function will be used when return the total sum of your numeric column. And that is your syntax of your sum function. Select some column name from table name where condition. Okay, your sum is your function name, and I had also told about that sum will be applied on your column name from table name where you will apply the condition. And for the examples of your sum function, of your count function, and your average function, here I had also taken a database. And in this database, suppose I had taken a one table, and your this table having six attributes. Product ID, product name, supplier ID, category ID, unit, and your price. Your all aggregate functions, like your min function, max function, average function, sum function, and your count function are applied on your attribute. And in this table, I had taken the five records. Okay, and each records having product ID, product name, supplier ID, category ID, unit, and your price. You can see here. And first of all, I am taking the example of your count. Suppose your employer want to count the all product ID, all product name. That time you will use the count function, and your count function will apply on your column name. That is your product ID, suppose product name, supplier ID, category ID, unit, and your price. So here you can see select. For select the column count is your function name, Product ID is your column name, and your count function will apply on your column name, that is your product ID. From product is your table. The when your this query will perform through this query, you will count the all product ID, and here you can see in this given table your product ID are 5, 1, 2, 3, 4, and 5. So your answer should be 5. Okay. And one major important thing in your count function, null value are not counted. In your count function, your null value are not counted. That is your important thing of your count function. Many times students have to be confused about the null value will be count or not. In your count example, your null value are not counted. And after that, I had taken an example of your ABG. ABG, that is your average function. In your average function, select ABG price from product. I had also told about ABG function. Your ABG function will also apply on your column name. Okay, in this table, your price is your one column name, and you want to find the average price. Suppose you want to find the average price. So that time you will use the average function. You can see here average function. So you will write select AVG and price. Price is your column name. From product, product is your table name. Okay. And after execute this query, you will find the average price. Average price 18 plus 19 plus 10 plus 22 plus 21.35. After adding the all price, you will divide from the numeric number, that is your 6. Sorry, that is your 5, because here your 5 prices. And as per the average formula in your mathematical, first of all you will count the all values, and after count the all value, you will divide the number of your value. So here your number of prices are your 5. That's why you will divide the 5, means 18 plus 19 plus 10 plus 22 plus 21.35 divided by 6. Sorry, divided by 5. And one major important thing also, null value are ignored. In your ABG function, null value are ignored. And after that, I had taken a new database. I had taken a new table. And in this table, suppose I had taken the 4 attributes, like your order detail, order ID, product ID, and your quantity. Okay, your order detail ID is your 5, order ID is your 5. Sorry, order ID and number of order ID is 5, and your product ID should be 5, and your quantity should be 5. Okay, and now I will take the sum function. Your sum function will also apply on your column name, and the following SQL statement find the sum of the quantity field in the order details table. This is your order detail tables, and in your order details tables, your attributes are order detail ID, order ID, product ID, and your quantity. And you can see here, the example of your sum function. Suppose your employer, suppose your head want to find the total number of quantity. Okay, so that time you will add the all quantity, and that time you will use the sum function. Okay, through the sum function you will add the all quantity like your 12 plus 10 plus 5 plus 9 plus 14. 12 plus 10 is your 22, 22 plus 5 your 27, 27 plus 9 is your 36, 36 plus 40 is your 76. So that time your sum will be 76. That time your output will be 76. You can see here. Okay, select some quantity from order details. Your select will apply on your column name, that is your quantity, and from order details. Order details is your table. So I hope you have understood about the all aggregate functions like your min function, like your max function, like your average function avg, like your sum function, and like your count function. And you can better understand from the example. That's why I had mentioned the all examples of your all aggregate functions, either your min, either your max, either count, either sum, and either count function. And as per I had told, after this lecture I will discuss about the some questions which are associated from this lecture, and your all questions are based on your aggregate function like your min, max, average, sum, and your count. Your first question is that which is the following is not a built-in aggregate function in SQL. Okay, so your functions here is mentioned are avg, that is your average function. And through the average function you will find the average value. Like suppose your table name is your shopkeeper, and your attributes of these tables are product, product price, okay, and your product manufacturing date and your product expiry date. And suppose your employer, your boss want to find the average price of your product. So that time you will apply the average function. Okay, and max function. Through the max function you will find the maximum value of your particular column. Suppose if you are having a column that is your salary, and your employee salaries are, which I have to already included in your table, like your 2000, 5000, 8000, 10,000, and 1000. And your employer want to find the maximum salary of your employee. So that time you will apply the max function. The main key point of your max function will be used find the maximum value. And third is your total, and fourth is your count. Okay, so these are the four functions, and these are the all four choice. And your questions object is that is not a built-in aggregate functions in SQL. Okay, so as per I had discussed, avj is your aggregate function, max is your aggregate function, count is your aggregate function. As per I had discussed about these all aggregate functions. Total is not a aggregate function. And in this lecture I have not discussed about the total aggregate function. Okay, so that's why your total is not aggregate function, and that aggregate function is not included in your SQL. That's why your answer will be C. And in your second questions, as per I am saying observe the given SQL query and choose the correct option. In this question, you will observe the SQL query and choose the correct option. Your query is this: select branch name, means you will select the column that is your branch name. Count distinct customer name. Distinct customer name means distinct is your keyword, and through the distinct, you will take only different customer name, not the same customer name. That's why I had mentioned here your distinct. You know, distinct is your keyword. Okay, when you want to access the different customer name, that time you will use the distinct keyword. And from depositor comma account. Here I had mentioned the two table, depositor and account, and where depositor dot account number is equal dot account underscore number. Here your one condition is mentioned, in which in this condition your depositor account number should be equal to account number of your account table. You know, here depositor and account both are table. Okay, and when you will apply the both tables in your where clause, so you will always write the attribute name with the help of your table name. So here you know your depositor is your table name, account number is your column name. So depositor dot account number equal to account dot account number group by branch ID. Group by branch ID means where you have to group your branch ID column number. Okay, so your answer is that the query is synthetically correct but gives the wrong answer. Here is your first option. The query is synthetically correct but gives the wrong answer. And second is your the query is synthetically wrong. The and third option is that the query is synthetically correct and gives the correct answer. And fourth is that the query contains one or more wrongly named clauses. Okay, so you know your answer will be your B. The query is synthetically wrong. Okay, and you know in my next lecture, in my upcoming lecture, I will discuss about the group by clause. That time you will know about why this query is your wrong, why this query is synthetically wrong. Okay, so your answer will be wrong, and about the group by clause I will discuss in my next upcoming lectures. And next question is that you will select a true or false. SQL does not permit distinct count. Okay, so you know I had already discussed about before some time your SQL does not permit distinct with your count. That is your right answer, because your count, your distinct keyword will use with the select keyword. Okay, not your distinct keyword with the use of with the count function. And here I am taking the count function. Okay, and as per the object of this query, your SQL does not permit distinct with count. Your options are true and false. So obviously your answer will be true, because your select clause will be use the distinct keyword, not a count function. Okay, you know about the count function. I had already discussed about that. And we apply the aggregate function to a group of sets of tuples using the clause. You know, group by clause, group clause, group set clause, and your group attribute. I had told about the group by clause. I will discuss about the group by clause in my next upcoming lecture. And we apply the aggregate function to a group of set of tuples. So your aggregate function you can apply to group of set of tuples using the group by clause. If you are not using the group by clause, that time your aggregate function to a group of set of tuples not be apply. That's why you will aggregate function to a group of sets of tuples using the group by clause. And in your next question, choose the correct option regarding the query. Select branch name this from deposit this, and your condition is that depositor dot account underscore number should be equal to account dot account underscore number. And here group by branch ID having average balance equal to 10,000. So this is your query. And at this time you don't know about the having clause and your group by clause. And I will discuss about the having and group by clause in my next upcoming lecture. And here your options are: the having clause checks whether the query result is true or not. The having clause does not check for any condition. The having clause allow only those tuples that have average balance 10,000 and none of the mentioned. So your answer will be C. The having clause allow only those tuples that have average balance is your 10,000. Okay, that's why your answer will be C. And in this given query, I had used the select keyword, your count function, your from clause, your where clause, your group by clause, and your having clause. You know about the select clause, count, distinct from, and where clause. Okay, but you don't know about the group clause and your having clause, and I will discuss in my next upcoming lectures. The fill in the blanks aggregate operations adds up all the values in the attribute. Your first option is your add, average, max, and your sum. Your question object is that the aggregate operations add up all the values in the attribute. Okay, means you want to add above the value of the attribute. Suppose your attribute is your price and you want to add the all price. So that time you will use the sum function, not you will use the add function, because add is not a aggregate function. Average, not you will use the average function, because you can use the average function when you find the average. And also not you will use the max function, because your max function will use when you find the maximum value of that particular column. That's why you will use the sum function. Sum function, that is your aggregate function. And true and false, any attribute which is present in the having clause without being aggregate must not be present in the group by clause. True and false, so your answer will be false, because any attribute which is present in the having clause without being aggregate must not present in the group by clause. That is your wrong answer. And we can rename the resulting attribute after the aggregate function has been applied. True or false? So your answer will be your true. We can rename the resulting attribute after the aggregate function has been applied. True. You can rename the resulting attribute. As per I had told, you will write select max function as your new attribute name. So means you can apply. That's why your answer will be true. And which keyword is used to rename the resulting attribute after the application of the aggregate function? As I had also discussed about the rename. With what value does not count function ignore? Repeating value, null value, character, and integers. And I had already mentioned about that your count function will every time will ignore the null value. So that is your answer will be your B. So I hope you have understood about the all aggregate functions which you will use in your SQL. Thank you.